asking ARA to show the evidence as well to back up the claims that they're making within their report. And the glaring, there's two glaring omissions from the report. One was what kicked all of this off in 2017 was the 2004 USS Nimitz case. There is completely no mention whatsoever of the Nimitz or the Tic Tac incident of 2004. And we can talk about the history, but basically in the mid-1990s, in 1996, the Royal Australian Air Force basically just wiped its hands clean and said, "Move along, folks, there's nothing to see here," and they haven't touched the topic since. They ceased all of their investigation. So, Australia's just been burying its head in the sand. Members of the Defence Services, coming forward to the likes of Ross Coulthart today, in this day and age that we live in now, F-35 pilots that are saying, look, we're seeing things in Australian airspace that we can't reconcile or identify. The line that it's held for a long time that, this is just a US problem. It's nothing for Australia to be concerned about.
All right, guys, welcome back to Total Disclosure. My name is Ty, and I'm the host and creator of the show. Today we're here, and we have a lovely, lovely show. We got the UFOs Down Under with Grant Lavac. Today is going to be so fun. I've been looking forward to this show for quite some time now. Grant is an Australian UAP activist, researcher, and podcaster residing in Melbourne. Grant has had a fascination for UAPs or UFOs since he was a young child, and considering himself to be just an ordinary guy who believes in extraordinary things, with a healthy degree of skepticism and open mind thrown in there together for good measure. Grant frequently leverages the Freedom of Information Act to better understand Australia's involvement, or rather lack thereof, of the UAP issue, and engages both his elected representatives and legacy media in the hope that they'll take this topic seriously. Another guy that we know from Down Under that's doing that very well is Ross Coulthart, and they're both good friends. It's time that we welcome Mr. Grant Lavac to the show. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, my friend. Thanks, Ty, for having me on. It's good to be with you and look forward to having a chat.
Yeah, I mean, aside from you and Ross Coulthart, I want to start off by saying, why is your country so far lacking in this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and it's a question that I've been trying to wrap my head around for ever since I really became a sponge and tried to soak up as much as I could throughout COVID. So many of us were locked at home, and we kind of had a lot more time on our hands. So I've with all of the activity that's been happening in the United States, really since the New York Times bombshell articles in 2017. It got me asking the question, well, what is Australia doing about UAPs? And unfortunately, very, very little. But not a lot of people know that Australia has almost as long as a history investigating the UAP UFO topic as the United States does, dating back to the early 1950s, a couple of years after Roswell, the Department of Air, which, and later on the Royal Australian Air Force, and another now defunct government agency, the Department of Supply, and the Joint Intelligence Organization. There was a concerted effort to investigate UAP UFOs in Australia from the 50s through to the mid-1990s. And we referred to the vernacular that was used in Australia in those decades past was UAS, unusual aerial sightings. That was the term that was used down under. And there was this effort, and we can talk about the history, but basically in the mid-1990s, in 1996, the Royal Australian Air Force basically just wiped its hands clean and said, "Move along, folks, there's nothing to see here," and they haven't touched the topic since. They ceased all of their investigation into UAP because they their reasoning was they couldn't find any compelling or other scientific reason to continue to devote resources to the investigation of UAP. But that was back in 1996. Fast forward to 2024, and we live in a very, very different world. And the landscape on the UAP UFO topic is very different than what it was back then. So, Australia has just been burying its head in the sand and towing the line that it's held for a long time, that this is just a US problem. It's nothing for Australia to be concerned about. We know what's in our skies. We have air dominance, when in actual fact they don't, because Australia has some pretty significant historical UAP UFO cases, and you have members of the defense services coming forward to the likes of Ross Coulthart today, in this day and age that we live in now, F-35 pilots that are saying, look, we're seeing things in Australian airspace that we can't reconcile or identify. What should we do? Because we don't want to report it to our higher ups at the Royal Australian Air Force, because there's still this air of ridicule and stigma that plagues this topic down under, and that people don't want to have a blemish put against their flight record if they report an observation of UAP. And what's the point of reporting it? Because there's currently no reporting or recording mechanisms in place whatsoever. And that's what I think, to kind of wrap up my long-winded answer for you. I think that's the real national security threat that Australia is faced with. If you've got both military, civil, and general aviation pilots and members of the defense services that are seeing unidentified anomalous phenomena or anomalous objects in Australian airspace or in Australian waters that they can't identify, and they're choosing not to report it out of a fear of ridicule and stigma and being ostracized, that's the real threat. Because what if one of those objects was a foreign adversarial system, like belonging to Russia or China? That is a huge national security threat. And what if it's something that's more exotic, beyond a prosaic explanation? What if it's something that falls in the catch-all other bin that ODNI put in its June 2021 preliminary assessment on UAP? So it's just unfortunate that Australia is continuing to bury its head in the sand on this topic. The needle is starting to move a little bit, and I can talk about why I think that's the case as we go through, but that kind of gives you a little bit of a history lesson on, I guess, Australia's involvement in the past and where they're currently at, the current position.
Right. And I feel that they're obviously, like when we talked about it before, a lot of people in the US, they think that this is a United States centralized phenomena, but they don't realize that it's global. And like you said, the Aussies have just as long a record investigating this, and I think that would be true to be said about any country that takes itself seriously in its advancement, right? China, Russia, Pakistan, you name it. If they have any capability and they're not looking into this, then they're doing themselves a disservice. That's quite frankly how I see it. This latest historical report by Arrow is just to get your we don't have to waste too much time on that hot garbage, but since there is a part 2 coming out, you do use the FOIA system a lot in your own country. What do you think about this latest attempt by the DoD and the office of Dr. Shankar, or formerly Dr. Shankar Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, look, for someone that is completely new to the topic and hasn't invested the time, energy, and effort that we have to research it and know the history and the backstory, I mean, on a positive front, it does provide a good timeline of historical events, from Project Sign, the mid 40s through to where we are today. So it's informative from that perspective, but it's obviously there are a number of factual errors that are included. There's no substantiation to any of the claims that are documented in ARA's report. I mean, everyone's asking, David Grush to show the evidence, well, we should be asking ARA to show the evidence as well to back up the claims that they're making within their report. And there's two glaring omissions from the report. One was what kicked all of this off in 2017 was the 2004 USS Nimitz case. There is completely no mention whatsoever of the Nimitz or the Tic Tac incident of 2004, which we know that ORSAP, which had its moniker or nickname of ATIP, investigated the Nimitz incident quite comprehensively. And we know that Colm Kelleher and George Knapp have stated publicly on the record in both their books as well as podcasts that it was ORSAP that produced a 141-page technical analysis of the Nimitz incident, in addition to a 14-page report that the former head of the UAP task force, Jay Stratton, using the pseudonym of Jonathan Axelrod in the books that have been put out there thus far, that Jay Stratton also did a 14-page report on the Nimitz. So why was Nimitz completely omitted from ARA's historical report? Hopefully it makes its way into volume 2, but I'm not too sure that it will, because volume 2 apparently is supposed to be everything from the 1st of October of last year through to now. So I could be mistaken, but I just found that to be a glaring omission from ARA's report. That was the first big thing I noticed. The second thing, and I was encouraged to see Eric Weinstein kind of agree on this as well, that on page 26 of ARA's report, where they talk about foreign and academic investigatory efforts, well, it references Canada's efforts, it references France, it references some of the UK's endeavors over the years, but it completely leaves Australia off the map. And that's significant because, and Eric Weinstein and Jesse Michaels have talked about this a number of times in documentaries and spaces on X, that there was a 1971 minute paper that was authored by Australian nuclear scientist Harry Turner for the Joint Intelligence Organization. And it's a comprehensive assessment from basically 1947 through to essentially 1971, when this report was authored by Harry Turner. It comprehensively assesses the United States' efforts to investigate, understand the nature and extent of UAP, and it goes through a very detailed chronological timeline. And what's fascinating that's included in this 1971 document, which is publicly available through the National Archives of Australia, is it references the efforts being undertaken by a number of physicists in the United States in the 1950s to research and crack anti-gravity. And that is also completely omitted from ARA's report.
Wow.
The potential linking of the UFO topic and the investigations by the United States Air Force, the US more broadly, and this effort to research anti-gravity. So, and for anyone that hasn't read that 1971 report, it's available in the National Archives of Australia. American Alchemy, which is Jesse Michaels' YouTube channel, even if you just watch his most recent documentary on T. Townsend Brown, he covers that quite extensively. So it's a truly fascinating document. It was just a real, I think, shame that it wasn't included in ARA's report.
Yeah, and what's that other report that wasn't included? I can't remember. Was it the Italian?
So there was so France has also done some comprehensive
the French report. Yes.
Yeah, so the
Cometa.
The Cometa report, yep.
Thank
that was
you.
completely omitted as well. So
it's like it's again, and so rather than I can't even believe I'm about to say this. Rather than grabbing one of those and citing something from one of those, we decide to cite a wiki fan page.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, I know.
That's where Arrow goes with it. Instead of using these reports made like the one you spoke about, the Cometa report. Nope, wiki fan page, and then continues his